Hey everyone, before I start this video, I just want to say Tafheet, the topic that we're talking about in hand, it is a high-risk driving practice and it's carried out on public roads and can be dangerous. This video that I'm going to be showing or giving you today, it is for cultural and educational context only. None of the actions in the video should be attempted. Just stay safe on the roads, don't try this at home, and enjoy the video. Over the last decade, a very specific type of footage has circulated online. It's usually nighttime, cars moving at high speed across wide, empty roads, long stretches of desert highways, urban edges where the city fades into open space. Most of it originates from Saudi Arabia. The recordings are often low quality, filmed on early phones, handheld cameras, or re-uploaded multiple times across platforms. Which, with each repost, context gets stripped away, locations became unclear, names disappear, even time periods blur. What remains, though, is the same core image: a car deliberately pushed into a controlled loss of traction, sliding across the ground at speed. In Saudi Arabia, this practice is known as Tafheet. Online, especially in the recent years, these clips have been grouped under a broader aesthetic label, Driftcore, a term that's used to describe the stylized circulation of this kind of imagery across social media platforms. But Tafheet is not an aesthetic. It's a driving practice that developed in Saudi Arabia in the late 12th century, shaped by specific social, urban, and infrastructural conditions. And to understand it properly, you have to separate what it originally was from what it's become online. Tafheet emerged during a period of rapid change in Saudi Arabia. From the 1970s onwards, urban expansion accelerated across major cities. New districts were built outward. Road networks expanded quickly to connect them. But the development of public recreational infrastructure did not expand at the same pace. These urban environments were disguised and designed around scale and distance. Wide roads, large intersections, separated zones for housing, commerce, and industry. Environments built for movement rather than occupation. In many ways, this produces a specific relationship between the people and the public space. Unlike older, denser city forms where streets naturally function as social spaces, these newer layouts often remove that layer of incidental interaction. So what fills the gap becomes important. At the same time, car ownership became widespread, particularly amongst young men in urban areas. Driving became one of the only consistent ways to move freely around this space, but also to occupy it, to be visible within it, to exist within it. Tafheet developed directly within that overlap between infrastructure and social life. At its core, Tafheet is controlled high-speed driving, deliberately pushing a vehicle into loss of traction and maintaining control through it. It is not a formal motorsport. It did not emerge from racing circuits or institutional environments. It's not like it's F1 or anything like that. There's no official tracks, no governing bodies, no formal training systems attached to it. Instead, it exists as informal knowledge, learned through observation, repetition, and proximity. That's what makes the nature of skill here different from formalized sport culture. It's not certified or measured by institutions, it's witnessed. It is recognized socially. and that changes how value is assigned to it. The cars used in Tafheet are also important. They're not specialized performance machines, they're ordinary sedans. Toyota Camrys, Chevrolet Caprices, and similar models that were widely available and relatively affordable. This detail shifts the meaning of the practice, because Tafheet is not designed by access to elite equipment or exclusivity. It's defined by how something as common as a general car is reinterpreted through use. A standard vehicle becomes something else entirely when placed in that environment and driven in that way. Among the young men who participated in Tafheet, it functioned as a form of social structure. Driving skill became a visible form of status. Control at speed, precision in movement, and the ability to manage risk became markers of reputation. The road itself became a stage. And unlike formal performance spaces, this stage was public, uncontrolled, and immediate. People gather at the edges of the road, not as spectators in a structured sense, but as participants in a shared environment, watching, reacting, filming. A feedback loop forms between the driver and the audience. The performance is shaped in real time by presence. And in that sense, Tafheet is not just about driving technique. It's about visibility, about being seen while doing it. At the same time, as Tafheet became more visible, it also became more publicly contested. Media coverage got involved, often focused on accidents, disruption, and risk. The dominant framing was safety-oriented, presenting Tafheet as a public hazard. Over time, this led to increased policing and legal intervention, as per usual. Enforcement efforts varied, but the overall direction remained consistent. Tafheet was treated as something to be restricted, controlled, or removed from public roads. What this creates is a familiar pattern, a practice that exists informally in public spaces becomes visible. That visibility produces regulation, and that regulation reinforces the idea that the practice exists primarily as a problem rather than a form of culture. By the early 2000s and into the 2010s, recordings of Tafheet began circulating more widely online. At first, these were relatively direct uploads. Camcorder footage, early mobile phone videos, clips shared through YouTube and forum communities. In this phase, the material still carried traces of origin. You could sometimes identify locations or recognize patterns of repetition that suggested a lived-in environment behind the footage. But as circulation increased, something shifted. Clips were being reposted without attribution, edited into compilations, extracted from longer recordings, shared across multiple platforms simultaneously. With each repetition, the context was reduced. What remained was the movement itself, the sliding cars, the night roads, the sound of engines. As social media platforms evolved, particularly Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, this process accelerated. Footage was re-edited, slowed down, color-graded, looped, and combined with unrelated visual material. Audio was replaced. Clips were reshaped for rhythm, mood, and visual consistency rather than accuracy. At this point, the material stops functioning as documentation. It starts functioning as aesthetic content. This is where the term driftcore begins to appear, not as a cultural category rooted in geography, but as an internet label used to describe the recurring visual pattern extracted from its original context. a pattern built from real footage, but no longer tied to the conditions that produced it. From a Western perspective, and particularly in online environments where this kind of context circulates without explanation, what becomes visible is only the surface layer. Desert roads, night driving, Arabic typography, cars moving through open space. These elements became immediately legible. They can be recognized quickly, categorized quickly, and consumed quickly. But recognition is not the same as understanding. When imagery circulates rather faster than context, it becomes easy for cultural material to be reduced into shorthand. Atmosphere replaces explanation. Now, being half Arab myself and growing up within a Western media environment, there is a particular awareness that develops around the process. Not always in an explicit way, but gradually. You begin to notice how certain visuals are repeatedly consumed in fragments, and how they are recontextualized without reference from where they come from, and how they become symbols of something broader, more abstract, and often detached from a lived reality. And importantly, this isn't necessarily intentional, it's structural. It's how platforms distribute and reshape context at scale. So what actually happens is a kind of compression. A specific cultural practice shaped by a specific environment becomes a circulating image. Not because the original practice disappears, but because its representation becomes more dominant than its context. What gets preserved online is not the full practice of Tafheet. It's a version of it, fragmented, edited, and reframed through repetition. And this is where a broader pattern becomes visible in how cultural material moves through digital platforms. It doesn't simply spread, it transforms. And each stage removes something slightly different. First the location, then the time, then the intention, then the context, until what remains is only what can be easily recognized. And in this process, Tafheet becomes Driftcore. Not as an evolution of culture, but as evolution of visibility. From lived practice to recorded footage to repost clip to aesthetic category. Each stage makes it more accessible, but also removes it from what it originally was. The difference between those two states is not just descriptive, it's the actual structure of it. It's in the difference between understanding something as it exists within its own conditions and recognizing it only in the form it takes once those conditions are removed. What circulates is no longer the practice itself, it's its image.